Jay got a little. What up, everyone? Welcome to Choose to Create Live. This is a program we do every third Wednesday of the month for entrepreneurs, creative professionals, anybody in the creative space. I am RJ Deed, a creative professional based here in South Florida. We got a video marketing agency, Content Factory Media Group, right here in Hollywood, Florida. So we do everything: photography, video. And we created this platform for creative professionals, for entrepreneurs as well, that, have a hobby and want to learn how to create videos on their own, or want to learn how to do photography, or just anybody that's into being a creative for real, So Choose to Create. And on this month, we have none other than David Muir. Yeah, in the building. He's a sexy man.
That's right. Right.
Yes, in the building. Introduction wise, man, done so many things, from album covers.
Let's talk about it. Let's not introduce it.
You know what I mean?
So here's the thing.
About it.
Let's just talk. So RJ, thank you for having me.
Uh-huh.
And I am a content creator. That's what I do. So
Yes.
I love storytelling. And I think that the best way to get our story, story about RJ and a story about David out there, is to just talk. So let's do that. Let's storytell for a minute.
Yeah.
And then we can let everybody learn about who I am, rather we tell them.
Yeah.
He is the sexy man. No, let's show them.
Exactly. So being that, a lot of our viewers are new to who you are, I want to kind of like talk about, how did you, what was your experience getting into entrepreneurship? Was it, what was your first experience to entrepreneurship
I love that question. That's
journey?
Brilliant. Thank
Yeah.
you for that question. Entrepreneurship it's been like my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds fake. So let me clean it up by saying, I grew up in a household. My parents had a business. So I grew up seeing them do a grand opening and operating a business and try to get clients and, providing customer service to their customers. And so that culture of service has been in me from when I was a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what really got me, my engines really broiled up the most about entrepreneurship was I always had ideas of things I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I always started attempting to do them in small ways. And then, I would share my dreams with others. And when people would doubt my ability to achieve my dreams, then I was on fire. Because anytime somebody said to me, "What do you want to do? You can't do that." I was like, "Oh, let me show you."
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
So for me, early entrepreneurship, I started my first business when I was in high school. And I got my first business loan when I was about 18. And to say that I got my first business loan is me starting the story of my first real endeavor into entrepreneurship. I didn't even know anything about business.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I grew up in a family with business, I was not educated on, David, this is how we do business. So I had to figure it out myself, since I wasn't getting taught that at home, or certainly not in school. And so for me, my first sort of experience was I wanted to be involved in music. I loved dancing, and I loved the idea of being popular, particularly being popular with girls. So, I wanted to be popular. I wanted girls to like me because I was popular.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that might have been some backward thinking, but it was what I thought as a young man.
Mm-hmm.
And teenager. So I wanted to be a DJ. That was my first sort of business plan. I wanted to own my own sound system that I would operate, own, make profits, play music, get popular with girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know the first thing about it. So in those times, it was very expensive. You couldn't just have a laptop and then you were a DJ. You actually had to own very expensive turntables and a mixer and amplifiers and all of this equipment that I didn't know how to get.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no money. I was a teenager. My parents weren't giving me money to go start a business, so I had to figure it out. So I went to work. I left high school, went to work at my first job, and I saved all my money to buy equipment and buy records. And I still never had enough. So I had to figure out, how do I get capital to start the business?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to a bank, and they were like, well, no, you don't just get money like that. You got to write a business plan. You got to show your projections. You got to do all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know none of this. But that's what I had to do to get what I needed. So we did all of that. And we got our first bank loan. I was a kid, and the bank gave me a chance. They said, we like what your projections are. We like what you're doing. We think this is going to work. And here's your opportunity. This is the money you need to do to get your equipment and get started. That was my first real experience in doing business. I was just out of high school. I must have been 16 when I started the concept of doing that particular business.
Mm-hmm.
And I got funded when I was 18, like 2 years later.
Wow. That's amazing. I didn't even know that, man.
I've done a lot of stuff, bro.
Wow. That is like mind blowing.
I've done a lot of stuff, yeah.
Putting together a business plan, drawing the whole plan up, going to a bank and getting funding. That is so, that's something. That's to
RJ,
be doing it at 18.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing about it. So I could fast forward, let's just say 2008, which would have been like, a good 20 years after the first time I did start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I was faced with a similar challenge, but in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
So in Jamaica, where I grew up, where I was getting that first bank loan, the fact that my skin looked like this was an advantage. Mm-hmm. So if my skin looked like yours, I was not going to get that bank loan, or not as easily because of my complexion.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward 20 years, I'm in America, and this just wasn't going to help me. This alone wasn't going to help me because this isn't as advantageous here. They wanted some bigger things. So I could just tell you, doing the same thing as an adult, and I'm saying as an adult, I'm talking about, as a grown man, even today. So funny enough, I actually had a business loan closing yesterday for a business that I'm starting in January. And just being real with you, like the process of obtaining money without putting up assets in its place is not easy at any time, no matter how old you are, no matter how much experience you have. So I'll just say this to, finish this topic and move on to more topics that we can discuss, is that the whole concept of gaining funding for something that has not already been proven to work. Because you can get funding a lot easier if you can show the last 5 years, I made $1 million profit every year. Here is the bank statements. Here's the thing. I just want to get an extra $1 million now to grow the business. That's a lot easier than saying, I have an unproven business. We have never done business, but I want you to support it from jump. So it's like you're saying, I need an angel investor. I need somebody who's going to believe in me before we get going. And that's a humongous difference in terms of how you survive as an entrepreneur. You need to recognize that the angels don't come every day. You have to prove first how you can make the business be successful, and then you'll get people to say, okay, I'll help you to get more successful. Because the other alternative is really just miracles. It's not every day you could come up with a business plan and get help. You have to have angels looking over your shoulder to make that an easy reality. So I'll give that as a caveat to explain the differential between what I experienced in 1980, whatever,
Mhm.
and what I experienced in 2000 and whatever. So,
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great place to start at, because even myself, that's something that I'm going through right now, is getting funding. So, just being that you have the experience in doing that, and, like, what would you say is the key things that you learned between, your first time getting funded from the bank to,
So
not even 2000, the last time you recently got
yesterday.
funded. What was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
What was
Yeah, I
the
literally
key
had a closing
ingredients?
yesterday.
Yeah, what were the key ingredients you feel you found was something that you learned from yesterday to, the
To back
first
then.
one?
So
Yeah,
I'm going to
that.
tell you that now, looking as an overview, looking
Mhm.
down at all of my experiences, the number one factor to getting stuff done is people. People like to do things with people they like.
Mhm.
Trust, know, it's like there's a feeling. And I'll tell you, for this most recent process, I'll just give you a quick glimpse into the back house.
Mhm.
You know, what I was looking for this particular time, just recently, this right now, is a SBA loan, and the SBA loan requires you to do a certain level of checkoffs. We were told, do A, B, C, D, and E, and you're going to be good. We did A, B, C, D, and E, put through the paperwork, and we were declined.
Mm.
But this was going through a bank. I don't want to say their name today. Just I'll let them off the hook. That was recommended the best bank for this type of loan. They're going to kill it, But nobody knew me there.
Mhm.
I was a total stranger. But it failed. Like
Mhm.
they literally rejected us, and we were like backs against the wall.
Mhm.
And then I started calling people I knew. I said, "Hey, Brian, help me with this. Oh, Angela, help me with this." And bingo, all of a sudden, what was impossible and didn't work, even though we followed all the rules
Mhm.
and worked with the bank that's the best bank for approving that particular type of loan,
Mhm.
all of a sudden, oh yeah, absolutely, David, yeah, I got you. Boom, yeah, no worries. Let's work on this.
Yeah.
So if you asking me what's the ingredient, there's no different than it was 40 years ago than it is right now. It's people, people, people. You gotta get to know people. You gotta make friends with people. You gotta show them that you're consistent. Like there's a lot of people out there who want to be creators who are into content, and they, let's just pretend 2020 they bought a camera, they're shooting, they're doing their videos, they're doing music and artists,
Mhm.
and bingo did great. 2 years super successful. 2023 came, and they, I want to be something else. I'm
Mhm.
gonna go fly kites or whatever it is. And then that consistency is not there.
Mhm.
I know many photographers burn out. They get hot, they get busy, they can't manage all the pressures, they quit the business and they're gone. That's not who's gonna get funded, because you're not gonna get liked. You gotta show not only that you're liked, but that you're consistent.
Consistent.
And you gotta be around. People are gonna be able to trust you and say,
Mhm.
yeah, I know this guy. He's been doing this. He's not going nowhere.
Mhm.
We believe in who he is. This is his life's work. This is what he wants to do. When people see that about your passion and your work,
Mhm.
then that's half the battle. No, you still gotta, clean up your credit score, and you still gotta show that you got
Yeah.
skin in the game. That's always what people want if they're gonna fund you. Is like, how much did you invest? Oh, you put in 50,000 of your money. Oh, he's serious.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm gonna be more inclined to fund you when I see that you have skin already in the game.
In the
Yeah,
game. Okay. I like that. Great answer.
it's my experience. This is
Yeah,
what I.
yeah, and
This is.
it's helping me.
Yeah.
It's helping me. So I appreciate that. I want to talk about culture and your culture. So I've been working with you for a while now, for a hot minute.
A minute or two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or two. So I want to kind of like talk about something that I've noticed you've been able to you've applied in almost in everything, even when you talk about DJing, and that's culture,
Mhm.
right? So I want to talk to you about like how, why is the culture and why is that so important to you, and why, and like also how do you manage to mix that into your business or use that to leverage you to get support or to grow your business or to connect with your community? Here in Florida, if there's anything that's Jamaican going on, of course, you know, David gonna be in the mix somewhere, you know what I mean? Whether it's Jerk Fest, whether it's you know, Let There Be Reggae. You remember I was telling you about
Yeah,
the
that's art
pictures that
exhibitions
I
and
seen,
stuff.
the exhibits that I seen
Yeah.
where you had you know, all the
I do
different
a lot of
artists.
things. So
Yeah,
Taste the
so kind of
Islands, Island Space, whatever it is, I'm in it.
culture, yeah.
So culture for me is, how do I say this easiest for others to understand? Like, I believe in doing what I love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I honestly love culture. And so that's how it becomes a part of everything I do. And let me explain more. We talk about music to start. So, you know, as a young person growing up in life, I found, you know, beauty in music. I found beauty in the people's expression in that way. I also
Mm-hmm.
love movies and I love lots of different creative things. I love poetry. I love different things. I love food a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And culture shows itself in food tremendously. If you can't tell, I'm sitting back, but I have the food pocket right here. All right. So, really, loving music was my first sort of direction into culture in that specific way. And you know, it's so wild growing up in Jamaica. And I mean, I'm a child of the 60s, grew up in 60s, 70s. You know, I was in high school in the 80s, you know, left high school in the 80s. So, you know, this is my journey. And in those years, we were going through in our own country this change, this change in the times where, you know, Jamaica always loves world music. Doesn't matter if it's from the US or from Europe or from Africa or from wherever, Jamaicans love world music. And in a lot of ways, the world music was more popular on the radio than our own music
Mm-hmm.
throughout those early years. This is before there was an IRE FM, before there was a reggae radio station. It was just like, yo, listen, what we got on the radio was world music, not Jamaican music. So the promotion of our own music was really underground. You had to go into the dance hall. You had to go to places that were not as well promoted in the mainstream, but it was
Okay.
in the underground. So I had to learn to love our culture in places that were not meant to highlight the culture. It was just, this was how the people were surviving, telling their own stories, sort of stories of revolution, stories of you know, hey, this is how we survive by saying, you know, the price of rent is too high, or the price of transportation is too much, or that the government seems to be corrupted, or whatever it is that was out there. And in those stories being told, I got to love my own people and our culture more. Hearing people say, yeah, we don't want the strife. We want to survive. We want to rise up above our struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And that culture came to me through music first. I've now seen it in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But as someone who loved that about our music and
Mm-hmm.
about our people and our culture, that's how I wanted to express myself. That's how I wanted to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the beginning for me. But if you ask me about, you know, like, how is it that culture is such a part of all that I do now?
Oh, yeah.
It's a continuing, let's just say it's a commitment. It's a commitment to the truth. And what I mean by that specifically is that, again, I'm telling you, I love music,
Mm-hmm.
so I promote music.
Mm-hmm.
I love art, so I promote art. I love our culture, Caribbean culture, people of color culture,
Mm-hmm.
underdog culture. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's natural for me. It brings me joy to lift it up.
Yeah.
And so part of that is telling my own stories, but also sharing the stories of other
Others.
people. And that's why I love it, because it brings me joy. It lifts me up. It tells you and others around me that this is my strength too.
Yeah.
So of course I'm going to love to lift it up, and I'm going to love to show it to others. And that's why it's always going to be a part of who I am, because I love what it does for me, and I love what it does for our people, our community.
Absolutely. I love that answer, man, because it makes sense. Because I told you a little bit about when I first heard about you. I moved back from New York, and it was like around 2012ish, and I was in church. I'm like, I'm trying to do my photography thing, and Junior was like, "Oh, you know David?" I'm like, David Muir, you photographer. I'm like, I never heard of him. So I went home that day and searched you up, and you had a mohawk. You had a red
I read
mohawk.
Mohawk. I did. Correct.
I'm like, he's Jamaican. I'm like, okay, let me keep looking up. And then when I was looking at the pictures and the art, I'm like, it's the exact pictures that I want to that I'm creating in my mind, that I want to create with this camera. I haven't quite got to the point of mastering the camera to be able to create the vision of what I want. But all of your images are so vibrant, loving, and just like pure, like candid, and just happy, and just joyful, and just like, so I was able to see the commitment to the culture and to the showing the culture, whether the beauty of natural hair, different things, or the food. I'm like, I could definitely see that in the pictures.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? So well, I want to talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you, like, when will you say is your first moment where you was like, oh, I got something here with these photos.
Whew.
Like these photographs right here, this is my new instrument that I'm gonna use to tell the story. Your first instrument was that DJ, that turntable. How did you know, like, all right, man, I have something here and I want to explore it?
I don't even know how to answer that well, because I could just tell you that what happened with me specifically was my wife was running for public office. So she was running for city commissioner, and we were hiring photographers to do the work. Now, I've been taking pictures my whole life. Yeah. I did it in high school. I did it after high school. I did it when I had my kids. Mm-hmm. But I was never thinking of it as a profession. Mm-hmm. But my wife was running for office, and I was figuring it out. And I was like, man, I'm paying way too much money for photographers. And I was, in my mind, being a little bit bad man, saying, why do they charge so much? I was like, nah, man, I could do this myself. Let me buy a camera and do the pictures. And so was the first thing that sort of forced me into being a little bit more professional, not just being a hobby photographer. So I bought a camera. And out of buying that camera, I now had a responsibility to earn that camera's value back. Mm-hmm. So sure, I took pictures of the campaign. That was fun, but I didn't know the answer to what you asked. How did I get to that point? So because I had the camera, I told myself that what I was going to do with that camera is go back home, and for my own purposes, not to share with the world, I wanted to document Jamaica, my home country, the way that I think of it. So here it is that I was now going back home on trips to take pictures of my home country in the way that I remember my love for Jamaica growing as a child. And so that brought me to the answer you asked. When I started doing that and I shared those pictures with others, the answer that they would give me told me, okay, David, you got more than just a hobby here. Because people were going crazy. And I'll say this in all humility. I didn't even understand what they were seeing in my pictures. I mean, I liked the pictures. I knew technically that, I had the right shutter speed and the right f-stop and the right ISO, and so the pictures were right, but they were just me taking pictures, like how anybody who's watching or anybody who's not even creative might take a picture with their cell phone, and it's just a picture. That's what I thought. I really didn't think of it as me creating art yet, but the response of people seeing the work that I was producing, and again, it wasn't work yet, but it was. I bought a proper camera. I had a good lens. I was sort of
Mhm.
organizing myself in a particular way. But that's when I started to realize that there was a possibility that there was something special, because it didn't make sense why people was hyped about
Yeah.
my pictures, and I wasn't that hyped yet.
Yeah.
But it was I started to
And
pay
putting that battery in
attention.
your pack, in your back,
Yeah,
like, yo,
yeah,
yo, these
yeah,
pictures.
yeah. So now I'm going to start working on it a little more, because
Uh-huh.
I'm getting validation
Yeah.
from people saying, "Yo, yeah, you got something going. You
Yeah.
got talent."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started to listen to their thoughts in that way.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And like I was saying, like even, working with photographers, even your experience, that's the reason why I kind of like asked you that. Because like even with me as a photographer, like, when I got that validation of like, oh, you do really good. Oh, you're a photographer for real, man. You did really great pictures and this and that. I'm like, oh, I guess I am a photographer,
Yes, sir.
and I start walking different. I start
Yeah.
really stepping into that, So like having that confidence of being like, I am a photographer. And then I want to keep going into that story a little bit more, because with you stepping into it and saying, yes, I'm a photographer now.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
Owning that title, and I want to twist it a little bit to say I wasn't just owning that I'm a photographer, because I don't particularly like that title.
Yeah, so I was gonna go there too.
Okay.
So with that title, so when you said photographer, right? I remember when I got your first business card. So we was at an event, took your card. Actually, you gave me your number. So back to when I heard about David Muir, and I found out about his pictures and seeing the Mohawk and fell in love with the pictures that you was taking. Now I was on the search to see, how can I connect with this guy? How can I find out to connect with David Moore? How could I possibly, and I was thinking ideas like, how can I possibly add value to this guy? You already take great pictures. Don't know how I can help him. I'm gonna find a way I can help him.
Well, you have many times. So
we was at Urban League.
Yeah.
And I needed insurance for
I
a gig
remember
I was
that.
doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, do you know anybody that has insurance? I'm thinking you're gonna just connect. You were like, oh, give me your number. Oh, got your number. You send me the person's information and all that. I got your card and stuff like that. I got your number, your actual number. So I was like, oh, I'm in now. I'm gonna stay in touch.
Yeah.
And but on your card, you had photo artists on it, right? And I always was like, oh, why you got photo artists? I'm like, you know what I mean? So when I did an event for you, which was Taste of the Islands,
Right.
By far my favorite event. Well organized, fun, food, drinks, people of all cultures, not only Jamaican culture, Caribbean culture.
Yes,
So
sir.
now you get to learn and experience different foods and everything. So that is by far the most amazing event that I did. And I was the actual official photographer at that event. Thanks to you.
Hey,
thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
I didn't even know I was the official photographer till somebody walked up to me and said, hey, what's up, RJ? I'm like, how you know me? But like when I after the event, I feel like one of the most biggest parts for me when I learned about the photo artist, it made sense, was after the event. I came to your house to edit, and you was able to give me critiques on each one of the photos, and I learned a lot through that process. But also, walking into your space, you had printouts of your photos. I've never seen that before.
Okay.
And it was like 4 feet by 4 feet, 4 feet by 6 feet.
Yep.
Huge images. And one of the earlier events that we did was exhibits. So kind of talk to me about how you was able to get into doing exhibits and how you kind of use that to position yourself as a photo artist rather than just like a photographer.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to unpack. I don't know if we're gonna end up with enough time with questions and everything coming up, but I'll say this for sure. How I got to it's funny how things are. So I bought the camera. I'd been doing the pictures of Jamaica, I started doing exhibitions sort of by chance. Um, I'll give you a funny story, real quick version. Um, I was asked to do a photograph of a nude model for a painter to paint the picture. So I was gonna shoot the person nude so that it could be painted by a painter.
Mm-hmm.
Funny how we just was talking about that. This
Yeah.
was early days. I did not know what I was doing. I was nervous, and this was a very beautiful model.
Mm-hmm.
And being in just her presence and her with no clothes on was not very comfortable for me because I was and still am a man who likes women.
Mm-hmm.
And to see a beautiful woman just hanging out nude in my presence was not easy at first. I've grown a lot since then. But at that point, I was uncomfortable and I had to figure it out. And I had no experience shooting anyone nude. But I knew I had to get this picture so that we could get it to the artist so that they could paint this nude portrait.
Mm-hmm.
So in the process of doing that, I was doing that shoot in someone's art gallery who was a painter who, in the dialogue about my work and what I had done and started showing my catalog, they were like, oh, this is some good work. Would you like to participate in an art show that I'm hosting? I was like, are you kidding me? Heck yeah, let's do this. So that was the unleashing of the monster in me. Now, that was before I had a photography business as a business. So I'd done a few exhibitions before I had a business. But again, talking about how things work out. I wanted to have my first photo studio, and I got an opportunity. And again, it comes back to they asked me for a business plan and projections and all this stuff so I could get this studio. So I had to, present what my plan was. And so in my bright little mind, I said, well, how am I going to make a business out of photography? My idea was to stand above others who were just photographers. If I was a photo artist, that was putting me at a little bit higher standard. And how would I prove that I was a photo artist, but for doing more exhibitions? So I'd already been introduced to it. I'd sold some work. So I was feeling my oats. I was like, man, I'm good. People be buying my photography.
Yeah.
So what better than to now do more exhibitions of my art, which was photography, but therefore photo artists. And in doing those exhibitions, I actually had another photographer, big up to Danger, if you ever see this, this was on you, Ryan Smith, otherwise known as Danger, said to me, you are a photo artist, that affirmation, that, and he was another photographer who is a photo artist.
Yeah, I know.
And so he was affirming that, I had these people coming out, literally hundreds of people came out to see my exhibitions, and it was successful. I was selling work. This was before I had any books or before I had any success as a photographer. I was getting my first sort of acknowledgments through the art side. So I bought into it. I owned it more, and I wrote that into my business plan as to how I was going to have success in my studio, is that I was going to get more popular by doing these various art exhibitions so people would know of me as in my talent as an artist with a camera. Therefore, I would get more work to shoot as this knowledgeable artistic person with my camera. And, things worked out. It worked out okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a concept that I thought would work for that business plan that I had to put together so I could move forward. Yeah. Question, bing, bing.
Questions coming in.
Yeah, let's see what we got.
Questions coming in. All right. We got questions. All right. Questions from Jay Knight. Is that the question? Let me make sure. Yeah, it is. All right. So they're asking, What is the most expensive photo you took?
Now that's an interesting question to answer. So, what's the most I've charged for a photo, or is it what's, I guess that's what that means if I translate it. Um, to
Okay.
be the most expensive, or do they mean what's the most I've sold a photograph for? Like, there are different questions, and I'm not sure which one they mean. I'll try to answer both. What I'll say is this. Um, the client who I think is probably paid the most for any of my work is a client that when I first tried to get their business, they had no interest. They thought I was not qualified to get their business.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I went to them, they kind of like laughed me off and said, you're not at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And then, roll forward, like a decade later, or just about a decade later, after I established myself a lot more, those same clients came to me and asked me to do a shoot. And I was unavailable because I was busy doing some other shoots. And so I told them, I can't do it now. Check me back in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't think that was the answer they was going to get because, I was previously someone who was eager to work for them. So in the end, it became, and this is just to answer that question appropriately, when you are a scarcity, when there is a greater demand for you than there is time allowing, your value goes up. And so what would have been something that I would have charged, let's just pretend, put some numbers out there without putting an exact figure, what I would have charged $20,000 to do, I was able to charge $75,000 to do. And that's close to the actual numbers because I was able to say, no, I can't do it now. Check somebody else. And they didn't want to check somebody else. They wanted my work. And so because of that, I was able to essentially triple my price.
Wow.
Of what I would have expected to get for that job. Now, that's me telling you about coding for a job. However, if you're talking about selling my work, that's a whole different perspective. So I'm not the typical sell your work photographer, but I definitely am someone who has sold work to different, primarily municipalities and things of that nature. I do a lot of work I've done work for Visit Lauderdale. I've done work for various municipalities. For example, we just recently did a book for the city of Dania Beach, which is right here. Yep. Yeah, we previously did a book for the city of Miami Gardens, which is right here. And in doing those projects, I do projects that allow me to charge for a volume of work. So in coding on doing a book project for a municipality, it's not just, hey, David, what does one photo cost? I'm not selling them 50 pictures. I'm selling them an entire project. So when we do a project like that, the prices can go much more than selling a single photograph. But I've sold individual photographs for, I would say, in the low thousands. I've never been over 10,000 for a single photograph, but I've sold pictures for, 1,500, 2,500. Again, depending on the format, the size, various different things. I've sold work on paper, on metal, on tile, on wood. I've really done a lot of different things, and I've just sold license. So because I'm a photographer and whatever work I create, I own that license in perpetuity. So if I sell someone a usage license that sells for a particular amount, and then if I sell a complete buyout of my image, which I've done as well, so I take a picture, you love my picture, I sell you the picture that I don't own that picture anymore. Now that requires me to charge a lot more for that image because I'm essentially giving up the rights to my creative product. So, there's various levels to what I would charge for a total buyout, but I've been able to be successful, and I've done total buyouts and images for, in the hundreds and in the thousands. Again, it depends on the project and who it is you're selling it to. Different people have a different value for the work.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know they want to find out about the money, but the thing what you were just talking on is so so important if
Oh,
you
yeah,
really paying attention and listening, right? So he's saying he's buying a usage, a license,
yeah, a
right?
license.
And then the difference between a buyout,
Right. So
right? That's so
you can buy the usage of my image for a year or for one occasion, just one time, or it could be for a 5-year period, or it could be a complete in perpetuity. Or we can sell a usage license. So it's not a buyout, but you could have a license that allows someone to use the same image over and over as long as you want to extend that license. So we've done license, for example, and this is actually a great example.
mhm,
RJ works with me a lot with projects like FITSI, which is a Broward County initiative, Broward Business and Beyond, different things that we do for the county of Broward. And as a requirement, they insist that any work that my team does for Broward County, they own those. So we do that work as work for hire. It's not a typical, I've hired you and you do the photography and you turn over your work. Because they're hiring you on a work for hire, every picture you take for the county of Broward, they own outright from the very start. It's not something I like to do. It's something we've had a lot of interesting dialogue, especially with the cultural division and the people who run the artistic side of the county, because I don't think that in total, honesty, I don't think that's being fair to Broward artists to have to be forced
mhm.
when you do work for the county to have to give up your rights. But I understand they've, worked with other creatives in the past and been sued for the work they had already paid for, and so they're trying to protect themselves. So I understand it's a complex situation, but you have to know your rights. You have to know what's possible, and then you got to understand when you go into an arrangement with anybody, if it is that they expect that you're doing work for hire, that you know that
How to
they
flow.
own it up right from the beginning.
Mhm.
So be careful when you make a determination that if you're doing work for hire, make sure the price is right.
Yeah, you got to price it for that. You got
Exactly.
to price it for that, and that's another thing that we haven't touched on much today. But as you can see through the conversation, he's an educator. He's constantly educating, and I remember Chanel asked me one time like, "Oh, did he teach you all of these things?" I'm like, he basically showed me all of these things. He was living, he was doing his thing, and I was
Absolutely.
just learning. I was
Just
just watching and
sponging.
paying
Sponging is
attention
good.
and just learning,
Yeah.
So that's something that is a part of you that you naturally you do. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
So we go back to my music days when I was young and growing and trying to be a DJ and to learn. I had people who were very secretive about the business. Oh, they're not going to tell you nothing because they're competing with you. But I was fortunate to have people who were open and honest.
mhm,
Big up, I don't think he'll ever see this, but John Jameson is someone who early in my life was open and honest and very, very helpful to me.
mhm.
And I love that compared to all the others who were not. And I always said, for me, I want to make sure that I'm always going to be that person that's the same. I want to
Yeah.
help everyone to have their chance, because when others were not giving me a chance, people showed me the way. And I'm forever grateful to
Yeah.
people who did that for me.
Absolutely. And I'm
Yeah.
grateful for you doing it for others like myself and many other
Absolutely.
photographers that you like, even from this platform,
Um,
educating them. So
absolutely.
now we want to go into another segment, which is we call In Your Own Words, right?
Yeah.
So just like I was talking about you being an educator, I want to talk to you about we're going to use different words and you're going to say in my own words, this is
Sure.
how I explain things. So in your own words, what would you say is an entrepreneur in your own words?
In my words, I would say that an entrepreneur is someone who has decided that it is more valuable to own their own time to earn a living rather than to rent themselves out to someone else who is going to own their time for them.
Mm, I like that. Okay. That's deep. That's deep. All right. So in your own words, what would you say? Well, in your own words, what is an artist?
Wow. So I think there's a lot of artistry in all of us.
Mhm.
I think an artist is someone who has decided that they are not afraid to express themselves to the public. So we all every day express ourselves, but a lot of times people want to hide that expression. I
Mhm.
think an artist is someone who says, not only am I creating an expression from within me, but I'm now going to share it with others. And that's what an artist is to me, someone who is a creator and is sharing their creation with others.
Okay.
And that could be a singer, songwriter, painter, photographer, doesn't matter what your art is, could be a lyricist, could be anything. Just,
Hmm.
yeah, creating and sharing. And we do it in so many ways. It could be a dancer, it could be, you know, it could be a teacher, it could be so many different things. Just once you get to create and share in the world.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really important to be able to not only create but share it.
Yeah.
Even in the
Hard to be an
education
artist
part.
if you're not sharing.
Yeah, and in education, you never from the moment we met, you never held back like, no, I ain't gonna. Nah, you gave the information freely and like, yo, grow, do your thing. So definitely that's an important part. I want to go into. We got questions.
All
Got
right.
questions for you guys from you guys. We got some viewers out there asking some questions. All right. So let's see what questions they have. See if this thing is loading correctly because it's looking like I have the same questions. You gonna
All
write it
right.
up there for me? Appreciate it. Uh, do we have questions? I see the same questions here. Um, as an educator, right? And teaching so many photographers. I don't see the question here, but I got a question.
Let's do it.
Teaching so many photographers, what is the one thing is you feel is the most difficult, or the one thing that you feel like once they get over this hump, or they feel like they learn this thing that they 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 got it, like as an educator and teaching photographers in Broward College and all of these different places.
So, all right. So let me answer that, but I'm also going to pivot a little bit to something else that I think is relevant because teaching photography. There's a lot of technical parts of photography, and I could teach that in my sleep, right? I do think that it is super important that if you are going to take on any art form, whether it's photography or you want to be a painter or anything else, it's going to be super important that you learn the craft.
Mm.
So I think it's very important that a photographer should understand all of the parts of being a photographer with a camera. But there's so many other parts to that. And so to answer what you're asking of me is that I think the first thing is know your camera, know all the settings, know how to execute a great photograph. Once you've done that, whether you practice it or not yet does not matter, but just having the knowledge, knowing what to do is the first step. The second step, which I think is really the most critical one, is understanding that almost everything we do depends on our interactions with people. And I mean that in the truest sense for being an entrepreneur, being a photographer, anything you're doing, it doesn't matter which angle you take it from. You can't be a great entrepreneur if you aren't great with people in some way. So you could be an inventor, or you could be, let's just say you create a patent. You could become an entrepreneur without having to do much interaction with people. But what you're creating the patent for is going to depend on people wanting it. So if you don't have an understanding of people, no matter how you spin anything, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need to have an understanding of people in some way. Being a photographer specifically, you wouldn't want to interact with people well, because if you don't, then you better be really great at doing what they call stock photography, taking pictures of jewelry or of glasses or of inanimate things. Like, oh, I'm great at taking pictures of a t-shirt on a stand, because everything else requires interacting with people. And if you're not a people person, then you definitely need to look out for the types of photography that don't interact with people. And that's very, very little. because people are a huge part. And so I think the most important part after you understand the general basics of photography, meaning the technical part, is to get comfortable directing people. You have to be able to motivate people to change their moods, to change their looks, to get them to interact in a particular way, whether it's a lifestyle shoot or commercial shoot or any of the other types, event photography, portrait photography. You could go up and down the list of different things. You have to be super comfortable with who you are, therefore super comfortable guiding others to be comfortable in their skin. So that to me is the most critical part of success as a photographer. And once you're ready to interact with people in that way, you're ready to blow up and to be, an expert. That's really it.
Yeah, nah, that's big. People is the
It's a huge part of it.
people is the key. I know we have a couple of returning events
Yes,
that's happening
we got a
in
few.
2025. We have a few things that's happening. So we talked a lot about the things that you're doing with the for profit. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things you do in the event space, which is, and it's still surrounded around culture. There still is some education in there as well. It's still empowering even for other photographers, bringing them out to be able to exercise and it's like a mix. It's like a whole melting pot. So we're going into 2025, and I'm going to talk about both of the events. I want you to talk about both of these events that we got coming up,
Sure.
and also not only to the events, but how you use those events to position your company and to raise more funding or awareness for what you're trying to bring to the community and the culture.
Thank you. So I guess the first one coming up is coming real soon. It's like 6 weeks away. So that's Reggae Genealogy. Reggae Genealogy. What does that even mean? Like people get like you come up with names like that. So all right, here's how we dial this back a few steps. So funny enough, originally Taste the Islands, which if you see, we got a book over here. That's one of the books that I have my photography work in. And Taste the Islands was a television show. My business partner, Khalib Thompson, she created the concept for. She produced a television show herself as the writer, cinematographer, editor. She did every single part of that. No disrespect or to anybody else who helped on the project, because the great Lukey Chung and other people participated. But I'm giving Khalib the props as the creative mind behind the television show. Now, when she started the television show, we were not business partners yet, but she engaged me by asking me to come and do the photography for the TV show. And that's how we sort of started doing business together. And it's now, a few years back. Anyhow, so spinning out of the television show, people needed to know how they could get to come and try the food. Where was these chefs? They don't have their own restaurant. How can we taste the food? This TV show, is being shown in 44 cities nationwide, or should I say 44 states nationwide. So we had a large audience of people who wanted to know where they could come get the food. So we decided, let's do a food festival, an annual Taste the Islands experience. Bingo. That kicked off. We did it for a few years in Miramar. Then we moved it from Miramar. We brought it to Fort Lauderdale. We did it at the History Fort Lauderdale Museum. They were great partners. Because of doing that partnership with them, we got to meet and get funding from the Community Foundation of Broward, which was wonderful. And they're still doing funding for Island Space Museum today. This is a long story short. At our third staging of Taste the Islands, we decided to introduce a culinary museum. So not only could you taste the food, but you come and learn about how the food was made. You can see the pots and the pans and all the various spices and the things surrounding that. Eddie Edwards from the Jerk Festival came to our festival and said, "Hey, this is a great idea. Would you be willing to bring your culinary museum to the Jerk Festival?" So we did that. Out of that, that was a big hit. People came, they were asking, where can we see this culinary museum? Or even better, where's the rest of the history of the Caribbean? Out of that, we got another grant, took it on the road. We went to all the various libraries and museums and places throughout Broward County, started showcasing the culinary museum, and then we extended it in 2020, the year we had COVID. We had a big break. Creatives didn't have a lot to do.
Yep.
We had a lot of empty space, free time, and we said, let's put that museum into a permanent physical place. So that's how the museum came about in 2020. Fortunately, we've been going now for 4+ years. Museum has obviously remained successful, but in creating ways to do more programming that was interesting to the public and also allowed us to earn and raise money, we came up with this concept of doing a concert which highlights the history and the evolution of music from the island of Jamaica. And that concert is called Reggae Genealogy. This year, 2024, we did our first staging of Reggae Genealogy. It was a huge success. For our first staging, we had a few thousand people. We celebrated by honoring one of the Marleys, by honoring Marcia Griffiths, one of the I3s from Bob Marley's band, and we also honored Miss Pat Chin, the founder or the co-founder of VP Records, which is Vincent and Patricia Records. So we honored 3 women in 2024. Coming around, we have 2025. February the 2nd, we're going to be honoring 3 great male versions, should I say? But you guys got to come check it out. So it's going to be at the Island Space Caribbean Museum, but in the parking lot. So at the Broward Mall, in the, I guess we're going to call it the northeast side of the parking lot, we're going to have Reggae Genealogy, February the 2nd. It is an amazing event. I am telling you that even though I'm the co-producer of such an event, but please come and check it out. It's the history of the music from the island of Jamaica, which includes reggae and everything else. We deal with ska, we deal with rocksteady, we do every different roots, dub. It goes through everything, and it shows also our influences and other genres of music, whether it be hip hop and rap, and we could go dubstep and drum and bass and all the different things, reggaeton, all the different things that we have helped to create in the world coming out of the island of Jamaica. So come check that out. That's February the 2nd. And then we're also bringing back is a return.
Yes.
Taste the Islands experience. After the COVID break, we're now actually ready to relaunch April 12th. You're going to have the Taste the Islands experience returns for, I believe this is now our 5th staging. We did 2 in Miramar, 2 in Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, the 5th staging of Taste the Islands experience. It is coming back and it is going to be a smash. I can't wait to share more details, but look out for it, April 12th. Now, having said all of that stuff, I still want to say this. When you talk about how we do stuff or why we do stuff, again, culture is critically important to me. And I want everyone to understand that when I say it's important to me, I am one person. I can't enjoy anything just for myself, which is why everything I do is for the public. It is for my community. So unfortunately, I'm not rich enough yet to fund all of this on my own. So we do get funding from a lot of different organizations, which we'd love to thank, including the Cultural Division, including the state of Florida, including getting federal grants, including getting even just $10 from individuals who are watching the show today. But people give their time. They come and volunteer at the museum. People give their artifacts. We have Taino artifacts. We have artifacts from, original people, meaning indigenous people. We have artifacts coming from, multiple different countries, from Suriname, from Panama, from Belize, from Jamaica, from Haiti, from Dominican Republic, from Dominica, from the lesser, Antilles, everybody, all nations that consider themselves Caribbean. We honor everybody. We don't have it, oh, it's just English speaking, or no, it's just a Creole speaking, or just a Dutch speaking. It's everybody. The Spanish, everybody's included. And it's best for you to come and experience it yourself. Even just last night, we had an event at Island Space that had all the consul generals from all the Caribbean islands. We had, from Barbados, from Trinidad, from Haiti, from Jamaica consul general was there. The Antiguan consul general was there. Someone from St. Lucia was there. I mean, we had so many different consul generals doing so much. And I know you got questions, so I won't drone on anymore.
Nah, absolutely. I mean, if you guys have not been to Island Space, you need to go there. Check them out, donate, support. Without your support, you won't have things like Island Space to be able to get back, because it's so important. Even the reggae genealogy. Like for me, I know reggae, I know dance hall, but like even me taking pictures and being there, it's so many. It's the history of our culture and music. It goes deep.
It does.
It goes deep, and so if we want to continue to have these type of things, we need to be able to support
definitely
the community, whether it's your time, donations, like you said, artifacts.
You can just come be a volunteer. You don't have to give money.
Yeah.
We can take 2 hours on a Friday evening. Come volunteer your time. We take gifts in any way, but I can tell you this. I personally volunteer there all the time. I'm actually asking all my friends to come volunteer as photographers, videographers. I do the same thing. I was there shooting an event yesterday. Listen, there's so many different talents we have. We have people who come there and, work as host, MC. People come and help just serving food. There's so many different ways you can give. You don't have to give cash, but cash don't hurt. Because if you don't come, it means we can use the cash to hire people to do it. But we have full-time staff. I don't work there myself, but we have a team who does, and we got to pay them too. Interesting story. I was on a call just yesterday, and so a board member, I think you might know her too, Juliet Rulak. She's a board member at the Community Foundation of Broward. Actually, she's an outgoing president. I was on a call with her yesterday, and she was telling me that the incoming president for that organization, the Community Foundation, gave her a gift as she was leaving and she was being taken over. And she said, David, you wouldn't believe, the gift they gave me was one of your books. So here it is, my friend that I've known for 20 years is telling me that someone gave her a gift of one of my books as a gift. Now, they don't know that we're friends. They don't know that, but it's just that's just the beauty of the work, because they said, hey, here is what we think is a great gift for you. And I laughed to myself because I don't even know where they got the book. I mean, obviously they must have bought it online at Amazon or one of those places, but it's just interesting how we can get caught in these spaces where it's just like, well, how is it that somebody's gonna gift my friend one of my books? Come on, man. But that's the beauty of the world, though. It's like they thought this was a perfect gift for them, and it just turns out that they know the author personally.
Yeah. And that just speaks volumes too, of like they're like, oh, what can I get something that represents her culture?
Exactly.
And that would be a great gift to her.
Absolutely.
That just speaks volume alone by itself. Like I need to get her a good gift, and I know she's gonna love this. Little do you know.
so I'll say this for sure. So you can buy books, Barnes and Noble. All the various places that you typically would go. You can buy it at VP Records. You can buy my books all over. But for me, I always tell people, go to piecesofjamaica.com. Then you get it from the source, because that's the only place you can guarantee get it signed and autographed to you. Because everywhere else you get it, it's going to be the seal in the packaging. You're not going to get that signed, authorized, an autographed version. So if you want signed and autographed, buy it at piecesofjamaica.com. That's the best place.
That's the best way to do it. Piecesofjamaica.com. And anything else as far as like them being able to get to the events, and register to get to the events that
So,
we got coming up in 2025?
Definitely. I mean, always best way to get to events is to register on Eventbrite. So you just look up Island Space.
Okay.
Island Space, the museum has their own Eventbrite, like, set up. So all of the events, whether it's reggae genealogy or anything else related to the museum, and let me just say this out loud. We have a mango festival. We have a rum cake festival.
Oh,
We like, do I need
yes.
to? We have an Anansi festival. We have so many different great events that you don't want to miss. Like, RJ, talk the truth. You go to the rum cake festival. Oh my
Off the
gosh,
chain.
samples of rum
Oh,
cake from
man.
every different culture.
Every
It's
culture.
it's nuts. It's the mango festival. I mean, all these things are places you gotta just go to Eventbrite, look up Island Space. You'll see all the various events. And everybody can buy tickets online, and it's just a great vibe.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that wraps up Choose to Create. I hope everybody was able to get a lot of nuggets and learn a lot about just photography and entrepreneurship, the journey, experiences, so many different things that I was able to learn from this conversation, from getting funding to there's just so much different things that we was able to touch on and just learn. So that's what Choose to Create is all about, is just kind of in that same vein of, just doing what we love, and educating and inspiring other creatives is part of the experience and part of the
It is. And you know what I would tell you, RJ, at the end of it all, to me, I think the most important thing that I like to live by is to have zero fear. We all have fears, but you got to live like you don't have any fears. So even when you have your greatest fears, because I got fears, man, but I don't live like I have any fears. So everything I do it without fear. Now, that doesn't mean don't plan, don't execute, don't figure it out. But at every stage of my life, including before we had the museum, everybody said, "Yeah, it's been tried. Nobody can get it done. It's never going to work." Everything that I hear is never going to work, bro. You just got to live without fear, but you got to plan and you got to execute. So get the right team together. I could not do anything I've done in my life on my own. But if I didn't have a RJ, if I didn't have a Khalib, if I didn't have somebody who partnered with me, and that's the thing. A lot of people get selfish and they try to do it by themselves. And you're not going to be able to achieve big things. You can achieve little things by yourself. But if you're going to do big things, you got to get partners. You got to get people who are going to do the journey with you. And so for me, you talk about giving advice. My one thing is live without fears. I'm a multitude. I'm what they call a serial entrepreneur. I've done it so many times. And if I let one failure stop me, I would not have any of these. I've failed tremendously, but I use it to give me good education, but never to stop me from trying again. So that's my point. Right. There's one thing: live without fear, but plan. Get the right team around you, get the right people, and you're gonna be so happy with living without fear.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. Yes, sir.
Love, sir.
Yes, sir. And that's it. Choose to Create Live. See y'all next month. Let's get it.